Good morning. Today we are again taking up Sons and Lovers, and we are on to chapter 12. And in this, we find that Paul is doing well as an artist, and his paintings are selling. And once he sells his designs to a department store to be printed on upholstery and furnitures, we see Paul in good mood around his mother, teasing and being playful with her. They're happy that soon they're going to be rich, and then she will have to manage the servants. We find them going on a holiday to Isles of Wight, and Mrs. Morel faints over there and she's quite ill. Though she recovers, but this leaves Paul worried and wondering about her health, and he's quite unhappy. We now find Paul spending his time with Clara, and he has broken up with Miriam, and so he's spending his time walking and talking to Clara. He even finds the weekends torturous as he has to wait for the weekdays so that he can meet Clara. Once, when finally she confirms him to meet that particular evening, and Paul is filled with anxiety throughout that time. They meet finally, and Clara asks him about Miriam as why their relationship has ended, and then she throws some light trying to explain to Paul that how she has been unfairly treated by Paul. And then Paul also admits that he has not treated her well. She asks him if he wants to get married, and he answers in negative, and he wants to know why Clara does not like Baxter Joyce, her husband, but she does not reply as to what was the reason that she thought of living separately from her husband. They walk towards the riverbank and later hike back. They stop for tea in the cottage, and the old lady is charmed by their cheerful manner. Later, Paul asks her if she feels guilty, and she says no. And Paul suggests that even Eve enjoyed in the Garden of Eden. Paul then narrates all this episode of walking and to Mrs. Morel, and Mrs. Morel tells him that he should have been careful about Clara and with Clara before going out with her, as she is a married woman. and he asks his mother to meet Clara, and she decides to invite her to tea on Sunday afternoon. We find that Paul occasionally sees Miriam, and once he asks her about Clara and her reasons to leave her husband. Miriam tries to explain by comparing Baxter to um, uh, Baxter and Clara's relationship to Mr. Morel and Mrs. Morel, but Paul disagrees with the idea, and he says that his mother loved his father and therefore she stayed with him. But Clara does not feel passionately for her husband. That is Paul's opinion. Miriam senses seriousness of Paul towards Clara. When she comes to know about the invitation that has been sent to her by Mrs. Morel, when Clara goes to Mrs. Morel for the tea, she gets along with her very well. While Clara and Paul are in the garden, Miriam then comes and looking at the two, she feels that they look like a happy couple. Mrs. Morel is not happy to see her. When Clara asks him if he will give up Miriam, then he says that he will like to continue to be her friend. Then the next week they go to a theater and she wears her evening dress and asks Paul to come in the evening in an evening suit. That day Paul misses his train and he goes to Clara's place where Mrs. Redford, her mother, makes fun of their dress. Both of them then play cribbage, and when Mrs. Redford goes to sleep, Paul goes to Clara and asks her to come to his room, but then she refuses. Next day, Mrs. Redford wakes him up in the morning and he realizes that Mrs. Redford is fond of him. He then suggests that they should all go to seaside and he is very happy when Mrs. Redford accepts the invitation. So in this chapter we see Clara and Paul's relationship developing and that she is being accepted by Mrs. Morel. We also find that Clara understands how important and how the life of Paul revolves around Mrs. Morel. So she is a very important and central to Paul's life, a center of attention and attraction in Paul's life. This is all for today. Thank you.